Hello everyone, welcome back to Himalaya Khabar podcast season 2 episode 8. Today we have a very special guest in our studio. He is an immigration attorney and the founder of Skylex. Without further ado, I want to welcome him to the Himalaya Khabar podcast. Welcome to Himalaya Khabar podcast, Mikhail. How's everything going on?
Yeah, thank you very much, Vishal. Yes, I'm doing really well. It's great to be here in Dallas, and thanks for having me here. I'm really excited about our conversation.
So let's start, to those viewers who don't know who Mikhail is.
Yeah.
How would you like to introduce yourself to my viewers?
Well, I'm an attorney by nature, by occupation, by profession, by hobby, everything. I really like representing people. I like fighting for their rights, and I like everyone to have a legal representation. So yeah, law is my passion, my hobby, my life, everything. Yeah.
So let's start, by your journey. Since you are an immigrant yourself,
Yeah.
and being an immigrant, so how have you been successful till as of now?
So I've always wanted to become a lawyer, and then so I was able to get accepted into the George Washington University in Washington D.C. That's where I started, and then I graduated and I got a job as an immigration lawyer at first, and then ever since then I've been doing that. So I have many years of experience working as an immigration lawyer only by now, and I really like that. And yeah, we've been having all kinds of different clients, different challenges, and in different geographical locations and from different countries.
Technically, in the United States, like why an attorney is needed, and let me say, how would a client know, what kind of attorney they should work with?
Sure, yeah. We actually made a video about both of those topics, like why an immigration lawyer is needed and how to find the right immigration lawyer on our YouTube channel. I'll share the link. But the immigration law system in the US is definitely the most complex immigration system in the world. The Swiss immigration system is pretty complex, and maybe the English one as well, but the United States have by far the most complicated system, and there are so many laws, so many different titles, different codes, different regulations, different guidances, and many different rules that is so complex, and it's impossible for an individual to navigate through those. And in most countries, really visa agencies handle all the work visas and permanent residency cards and everything.
Correct.
You never need a lawyer for that, right? You don't have to go to court. You don't have to file 400 pages of supporting documents. In most countries, just visa agencies do that. And if the United States system was easy, there was no need for a lawyer. I always say to my colleagues and my clients, if you can do it yourself, please do it. Don't waste my time, and don't spend your money. If you can do it yourself, please do. And then, but then there are so many different things that it's impossible to figure out. If you spend couple of years, maybe less, on studying how to fix your own car, right? You'll probably figure it out, right? Some cases like that with immigration as well. If you really study for a long time, then you will find a way and you'll do it. You don't know if you'll do it right. You don't know if it will work, and you don't know if it will break down the road sometime. But at least you'll find a way to solve it. It's kind of like that with the immigration law. Yeah, certain things people can figure out, but to do it quickly, most efficiently, and with the security that nothing will break down the road, you definitely immigrants need immigration lawyers.
Okay, yeah, that's a great information, by the way. So a couple of days ago, I've been researching about you, and I found an app that you are the founder of, the app Skylex. So what is the story behind it, and how do you came up with this idea?
Yeah, so thank you. This is a great question, and this is my second most favorite topic to talk about. So I was working as an immigration lawyer, and my boss came once, and he was staying up the whole night, just working with the client. And then I was
when was this?
Well, it was in about 2012 or 2013. Yeah, and
Almost
then,
like 10 years ago.
yeah, almost, yeah, 10 years ago. And I was thinking that there gotta be a solution to provide a 24/7 access to lawyers, something quick and efficient, something not expensive and convenient for both parts, for the clients and for the lawyers. And the technology was there. Like then, even like before Uber and WhatsApp, Messenger, Facebook, whatever, there was the technology was already there to make this connection possible. It's just a matter of execution, and that's the task that I challenged myself with, and wanted to provide an efficient access to lawyers, and then we do only immigration law now, to everyone across the world. And why immigration is important, because it applies from one place, one office. We can serve any country around the world, and the time zones that with which we receive the inquiries are very important too. And then so we that's what we're doing with Skylex. We give access to attorneys 24/7 and every day.
That's great. I even downloaded your app just before a couple of hours, and I found it quite efficient, as well as I mean it's pretty easy and comfortable for the client, especially a lot of people here in the United States, they are obviously in need of right consultations. In that case, so is this app a new form, or like a new way that you guys invented, or there are other this sort of app in the market as well? Because myself, I know there are a lot of lawyers, and when you try to get consultation, at first they will send you an email through which you can take an appointment, you have to pay, and then you can do accordingly. But is this like a first invention that you guys did so far?
Yep, that's the first one, and as far as we know, there is nobody working on that. We're the only ones. There is nothing like that available on the market. There has never been anything like that, and we got an award, American Business Award, for that, as the most innovative, the best app in the professional services category. Not just the legal app or immigration app, but the best app in the professional services category, because it's not social. We're not there to exchange ideas, or it's not social media stuff. It's only directed on immigration, to find a lawyer. It's an app to protect the attorney-client privileged communication. When your app, this Skylex, buzzes on your phone, it's important. This is from a lawyer. That way the message is not going to get lost amongst thousands of spam emails or anything like that. That way you will never miss your court appointment, or another deadline, or just some kind of a request from a lawyer. Okay, I need your photographs, or I need a signature on this document. So that's what the app is created for.
So how many teams do you have, team members currently working on this project?
Well, it's a great question, and it's always not always changes, but we basically have 3 full-time engineers, and then the app is available on the iPhone. So we have an iPhone engineer, the Android, and we also have a web version. So we have the React native engineer that does the web version. So 3 people, and then we have many contractors, like the designers, quality assurance team, and then we partner with a lot of schools and universities that we do student visas with. So we actually have an entire QA school, quality assurance school, that is testing our app. And
that's great.
Yeah, it's we do work for them, they do work for us, and then no money exchange.
Right. We'll talk furthermore in upcoming time. So let's a little bit get diverted into various category. Since you are, I'd love to call you like an immigration expert, or since you are pretty much specific on immigration stuff. So what kind of immigration related stuff that you deal with in your day-to-day life, like let's say related with student visas or work visas, EB3 asylums, people crossing the borders. So can you please highlight some of things that
first of all, within the Skylex app, we're taking care of any possible issue on immigration. So everything, starting from simple like tourist visas, which simple for us, may be a life-changing event for some people. But so starting from that and ending with complex court appeals or representing clients with arguing something their position before different courts, and not only asylum but others as well. So and then I would do, let's say, 40% is employment based. The other 40% is like asylum and everything that is connected to the political asylum cases, and the rest is like a little bit of everything, family-based, marriage-based, special immigrant, even R1, religious worker visas, and actually I didn't mention entertainment immigration, which is a pretty big chunk of our business. We specialize on concerts and definitely the Nepali events as well. So we just do the P visas, P1 visas, and P3 visas,
okay.
And EB1, which is a special category for the most talented musicians, actors, and so on. Yeah.
So let's talk. Like you mentioned, employment-based visa. So let's talk a little bit, depth about employment-based. So let me give you one scenario here. So I'm an international student. So in this podcast, we'll be primarily focusing on Nepalese community, since most of our viewers are obviously Nepalese people. So I'm an international student. I came to United States 5 years ago. I completed my bachelor's. So what will be my further process for a legal pathway to stay in United States? And is only employment-based, green card or permanent resident is the only one way to get a pathway to stay here, or there are several of them?
Yeah, definitely several. Yeah. And then I wish I had a draw erase board. In my office I always use that because I like teaching.
Right. That's a great way of presentation.
Yeah. And then I like teaching, so I go to several universities as a guest lecturer to talk about that. And then within the universities, we work closely with the career development centers, right? That's what they're called within universities. We tell people like what that means to be an F1 student, what are the rights, what is OPT, what is STEM OPT, and what are the ways to get visas. And then very important that nobody talks about, and sometimes it's too expensive to get a lawyer for that, but how to approach your employer to file a visa for you or file a green card. At what point, during the probation period or after, can you mention it during the interview or not? Things like that we discuss with certain universities that are partners, and the students really appreciate that. But so the number one thing is just to complete at least 12 months of a full 1 year program and get an OPT. So any student is eligible who completed a full program is eligible for an OPT, so it's 1 year. That's the best way to stay at first, because this 1 year gives you employment authorization, and which means you can go to an employer, any employer, ideally related to the degree, and work for 12 months. And then if there is a STEM degree,
so what
science, technical, science, technology, engineering, or math, then we get an extension and can stay almost 3 years, right? Yeah, so this is the best way for a student. But then for the Nepali students, there is no, the most common way is to get an H-1B visa after getting a degree. H-1B visa is something that an employer can file. It's filed on April 1st, once a year, and then it can be filed any year. If you have an OPT, then file it right away. If there's a STEM OPT, you want to file as quickly as possible as well. And then H-1B visa is a work visa that is employer specific. So when you have an EAD, employment authorization document based on this OPT, optional practical training, then you can work for any employer. But when you have an H-1B, this is an employer-specific visa. You can work only for that employer that filed that visa. But the term there is 3 years. Yeah, so you can, and then once the H-1B is filed, or you can get a green card through any employer as well.
So is there any way an employer can file a green card without an H1B.
So, and then we've dealt with that a lot, for some staffing agencies, IT consultancy companies, when they have, let's say, students from India and students from Nepal. The students from India definitely have to have an H1B first, because there is no way for them to go directly to a green card because of certain backlog. But the students from Nepal can file for a green card directly and get a green card that way. So any employer can sponsor. The job has to be relevant to the degree.
Field of degree.
Yeah. And then at any point it can be filed. Even like the student does not have to work for the employer. Most people don't know that. The student doesn't have to be employed at the time of filing. Yeah.
Okay.
And then and then the process takes about a year and a half, 2 years. And the student can get a green card that way through employment-based green card. Yeah.
So how about the special program? As you mentioned, like for the musicians and for the artists, and how about recently they have merged like EB2 and EB3, if I'm not wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something like unskilled and skilled, both manpower, in the same category of green card.
Yeah.
Another scenario here. So my sister is a nurse back home in Nepal, and she wanted to come to United States, staying in Nepal, having a green card, and she is a nurse.
Yeah.
So is it possible?
Yes, sure, it is possible. I like comparing the United States immigration system as a whole, and then the logic behind it. To understand that, like, let's say, is a nurse an occupation that is needed in the U.S. Like generally by and large, like if you say, okay, do you need like a cleaning person or a nurse, right? It's kind of like it's not counterintuitive to think that a nurse is needed by the U.S. economy at large and any hospital to take care of patients. That's why when you think that way, then there got to be some kind of a provision in the law that would make it easier. So yeah, there are categories for nurses, but it has to be an employer. So that's where we start with any petition when clients come to us. When we serve employers, that's easy. The employers come and they say, okay, I have this person and I have a job. I have 10 people in my office, in Kathmandu, I want to bring them here. Or I have a sales division that I need here. Or I have an engineer or a chef that that I want to cook momo at my restaurant. So,
right.
And then there's like, okay, no issues with that. When we work the other way, when we hear it's like, okay, I want to come. The easiest way is just, okay, find a job, right? We have to have an employer.
So finding an employer is the foremost thing that we need.
Basically, for that scenario, yes. Finding an employer, and it has to be relevant to the degree or occupation. So for nurse doesn't have to work for a hospital. Hospitals are in the U.S. They're large and massively regulated institutions. It's very hard to get like a hospital to accept you to give you a job offer when you're not even in the country. But nurses are needed among other sectors of economy, so to speak. Some childcare facilities need them, like special needs. There are so many special needs preschools, like that needs nurses. Some kids with disabilities or with certain limitations, they need that. And also some assisted living facilities need nurses as well. And not only that, most people don't know, but individual families can sponsor immigrants to come here for green cards as well. So a lot of families need a certain assistance, for their kids or for their elderly, just within one family. And then if the income of that family is high enough, which does not need to be, if it's over $100,000, we can make it work. And the family can afford a full-time nurse or a nanny or like a caregiver of some sort, we can make it work. So the employer does not have to be an official hospital institution. It can be an employer with a broad definition of that word,
I'm pretty much focused on international students, especially from Nepalese. Back in 2021 till 2022, if you look at the data, almost 12,000 citizens of Nepal, international students came to United States to pursue their education. And in the long run, for sure, obviously it can be effective to those viewers who want to pursue a legal pathway for the future in the United States. So apart from that, again, another scenario I want to present to you. So I'm an international student, and I am recently going to college as well, maintaining my status, and I have filed my EB3 unskilled category green card as well. So is it possible, and how would we do it?
Yes, it's possible. So I often say that the process takes 2 years, and it's employer specific. You have to have a good relationship with that employer for at least 2 years. So it's good for employers to sponsor workers, because that makes the employees stay and perhaps work harder, and it works the opposite. So if you filed an EB3, be sure, keep in mind that you're not stuck to that employer, but you need to be there for a while. So it has to be an employer that you have confidence with as well.
But overall, you mean to say it will take around 2 to 3 years?
Yes, 2 to 3 years. Yes. So if filing EB3, if you have an OPT now, employment authorization, you start working, and then just have the employer file everything, or have the employer call us, and then we start the process. In 2 to 3 years, you will get a green card.
So you can be an OPT at the same time, as well as you can start filing for EB3 and work.
Yes, yes, those things go in parallel, but maintaining a valid status is vitally important. Very, very important. You don't want to fall out of status. You definitely want to be in status.
Right. So back in 2014, when the earthquake hit Nepal, almost 15,000 Nepalese nationality citizens have been granted TPS, and since then TPS has been it's been extending, and recently also Department of Homeland Security they extended TPS till June 2024. So what's your thought on this, and how can Nepalese citizens take advantage of TPS?
So it's a great question, and it's a very important question, because the magnitude of there's so many people in the TPS status now. An employment-based application is one solution for them. So filing an EB3 skilled or unskilled job based green card petition, or EB2, which is like a master's or a bachelor's degree, is an option. So since it's extended, the best option is to find an employer or talk with an employer now, because TPS gives also employment authorization document. So every TPS holder is authorized to work in the US, which means that you can use that experience for the green card application.
So they can work in any field they want to, or they have to, it has to have something specific field only they're supposed to work? So
for EB2 visa, it has to be related to the education, but for EB3 visa, only related to experience. Okay, let's say I am an accountant, and I'm an accountant, I have an accounting degree, but when I came to the US after the earthquake, I just, or before the earthquake, right, and then got a TPS here, then I've been working at a gas station as a cashier. So cashier, is it related to accounting? It's counting a lot of money all day long, right?
Right.
But it's maybe not on the scale of really hardcore accounting. That's why I wouldn't, for that type of scenario, we wouldn't use the degree in accounting, and we would not file EB2, but we would use an EB3 as a cashier, using 2 years of experience working for a different employer as a cashier. So if I'm here since 2014, 2015, definitely I've been working for several convenience stores or gas stations or other companies, and then I have 2 years of working as a cashier for one place. So then now it's a good time we file an EB3 petition. We use those 2 years of experience working for a different convenience store or gas station, and then we file an EB3 petition. Then we show that TPS was extended on time, it was filed on time. So initially, if we had a tourist visa, the tourist visa was not did not expire. Then we filed TPS. TPS has been always extended, and then now we have enough time to file EB3 petition and then do an adjustment of status, which is a green card application, from TPS directly to green card. So that would be the pathway.
So regarding TPS, I want to talk a little bit more specific on TPS case. So I mean, can a student be on a TPS too and on a F1? I mean, is TPS technically a status, or it's something that does the US government give it to the?
Yeah, so it's it's a great question, and it's very deep to understand the legal nature of it. TPS is a temporary protected status, but the first word is temporary, so it's not really a status. And at the same time, it is a status because you can stay in the US and get employment work authorization. So TPS by itself, you cannot file adjustment of status from like TPS, or if you fell out of status before filing a TPS. So here's basically how it goes. If you were a tourist and then you filed for TPS while the tourist visa was valid, and then even after 6 years, we file for a green card and then we file an adjustment of status. We relate back to the original tourist application, tourist visa, and then we say to the government, to the USCIS, Department of Homeland Security, just saying, well, use our tourist visa that we initially received, and then the TPS did not interrupt our legal status. It like temporarily protected our tourist visa status, and that's why we are eligible for a green card based on that initial tourist visa status, even though the TPS was, we were in a TPS for 6 years or so. So it's a status that kind of goes on top of a different status.
So, but technically, suppose if I'm a student and I decided to quit my, university, I can be on TPS status though.
That's correct.
I would be out of status.
Same thing applies to any other visa, including a student one. So yeah, but at the time of filing, in order to get a green card, you have to maintain a valid student status, you see? So if you have a valid student status, then you file a TPS, then there is no intermission and no unauthorized period of stay.
So if I came to United States in 2015 and I have not filed TPS at that time, so now I decided to file a TPS. So can I file even right now as well?
Well, there is a clear guidance on that. That's only people who are in the US at a certain time are eligible. So the answer is no. Yeah.
I mean, even if I came to United States 2015, when the United States gave TPS, authorization.
Yeah, there is a certain date. I just don't remember what it is exactly. And those people who were here at that date, then they're eligible for TPS.
So what you mean to say is like we were supposed to file only certain period of time.
Exactly.
You cannot file right now.
Yeah,
even if you came at 2015.
Yeah, right. And if you came in, after that, then you're not eligible for TPS.
That's great. So we have talked, pretty much covered a lot of stuff that are related to Nepalese community as well as outside as immigration overall. So to my possible viewers, how can they reach out to you? And to your company.
We'll have the links under the video, right? And then, Skylex is the best way. Downloaded it, check it out. It works on any phone. It works from Nepal, definitely, and from the US as well. It works like WhatsApp or any other messenger. You just verify your phone number and start texting, and then you can ask any questions inside the app, and we'll be able to answer.
One thing I feel like I should raise this concern as well regarding the asylum cases.
Yeah.
So how much do you have found specific on Nepalese community filing for asylum, and what might be the cases? It's good to share to my viewers.
Yeah, asylum is a very tricky application, and unfortunately, what I have found within the Nepali community is it's a default option. A lot of people come as tourists, and there's like, okay, apply for asylum, and the relatives and the community members misguide the newcomers. That's often, and then they just say, okay, the asylum application will get approved, my I did it, my uncle, my aunt, my friend, my employer, my coworker, they all did asylum, so that's why you should file asylum. And I disagree with that. I strongly disagree with that, because especially for young, smart folks, who can speak English, who can go to school, asylum is not the best option. Asylum takes so many years to get approved. For one thing, it can be anywhere. It depends on what kind of visa, but anywhere between 5 and 12 years. And after that, you cannot, the asylee, those who got the status, they cannot really travel to Nepal, right? They go to India and then meet with their relatives that way. Because in the green card, when it's approved, there is a category that says asylum category, and then if you go to Nepal after with that green card, then when you come back, then the officer can challenge that person and just say, well, if you applied for asylum, you have a fear of death. Why the minute you got a green card you go back and having fun? Right. So asylum is a tricky application, but it's easy to file, relatively inexpensive, and anyone can do that. And what we found that many people do that, and young and old and students, and I'd say, quite frankly, most people don't have a valid basis for asylum, but they still file and get it approved. But I'd say 90% of the cases don't really have a real deal fear of death and persecution in Nepal. And that is why I think there are so many other employment-based options, but they take more work. With asylum, it's relatively easy. You come in any visa or cross the border and then file it, and then get an employment authorization, in 10 months essentially. But all the other ways are expensive and difficult and require maybe more stressful.
Right. So if a person he or she comes crossing border.
Yeah.
Right?
Border crossing cases are tricky because the minute you come in, you already request for asylum. So it's like a.
So most of the cases, those are the people who does asylum, or there are other separate category of people who does asylum too.
So the border crossing cases are all asylum based. Yeah, and then now what happens, which again a lot of people in Nepal get into that scenario where they pay certain I don't know how to properly call them, agents, and then the price, what I heard is between $30,000 to $40,000, and these people get you out of Nepal through Dubai or through some Egypt, and then they fly to Mexico, and in Mexico through a Mexican cartel they guide it towards the right way to or like a right path to cross the border, and after that they get picked up by the patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, and then they get referred to the court. So we have a lot of clients like that. Who
so you personally deal with those sort of clients from Nepal too?
Yes, definitely. We deal with them once when they're already in the U.S. And then definitely we do that, and then we have to represent their rights. As I mentioned in the beginning, I feel like once you're here in the U.S. As a human being, there is that right to be represented and to have the best legal advice, and that's where I come in. And regardless of how a person got here, then we just need to do our best, and we do our best, and to represent them in court or before the USCIS and other government agencies, and then we file the asylum applications.
Anything specific topics that you think we should cover up in this podcast?
Well, I just say that I really enjoy working with the Nepali community. We hope to contribute, and this is really good. And then the Nepali people are very honest, very hardworking, and very smart. And I think a lot of people who are now thinking of immigrating or who are already here, there is always a legal way. Work hard, talk with your employer, or go to school. You can transfer your status from a tourist to a student. Pick up a degree. You can study information systems. It doesn't have to be computer science, or you can do accounting. There are so many different options. And then within our Skylex infrastructure. We have contacts with different schools as well, where you can transfer your tourist visa to a student visa, and not just to stay in the U.S. to do language, English as a second language, ESL schools, so called. There are many certificate programs that we like in accounting, in hospitality management, in information systems and cybersecurity, many different things. When you complete those, then you'll be able to get a better job. So filing for asylum and working at a gas station may be a good option, but there are so many others as well, because once you are in that place, it's hard then to take classes and go to school, Yeah.
Right. So how about the backlogs? Because I have heard, back from 2019, due to this pandemic, USCIS is having a lot of backlogs, and for various cases, they're taking a little while, especially even for H1Bs and other,
Yes, so many, and then family-based petitions as well. Well, what we can do. First, we charge. And then for different types of cases, expediting the case. But we always complain to congressmen. That's one way that we do. After filing multiple inquiries to the Department of Homeland Security and complaining about such a long period of case processing, then we complain to congressmen. So we know almost every field representative, as they're called. Every congressman has a field representative for immigration. We complain to them, and then they send letters to Department of Homeland Security or Department of State, and that way, that's how we get cases pushed.
So recently they have changed this law, or when you file for I-765 for employment authorization card. So until and unless you get a valid renewed card, so the old card will, the EAD will work until you receive it. Is that the case, or?
It wasn't until recently when the new guidance came by that once the extension, the renewal has been filed, the previous EAD is valid.
Until you receive the new one?
No, it's actually valid for, there is a certain day, I think it's 180 days, but I might be mistaken, so yeah. And there was a recent guidance, but before, you're right, it was a huge issue where the EAD expires, we file it in advance, but it's still pending. For big companies, they have to take them off payroll.
Yes, that's correct. Even I have heard the news in CNN, one of the employee who was an H1B, international student trying to, work in H1B from India. He was waiting for his EAD more than 90 days, and he was technically was about to be out of status. So that was a really, horrific situation.
Sure. Although a legal status in the U.S. and employment authorization status, these are two separate paths. They go in parallel. So he probably was not employment authorized, but he was still legal in the U.S. But what's the point to be legal if you cannot work, right? You cannot support yourself. So it is a big issue. Yeah.
That's great. All right, Mikhail, it was really great talking to you, and we, like Himalaya Khabar podcast team, want to appreciate your time. And do you want to say anything to my viewers? Thank
you, Bishal. It was great. Let's talk again, and I really enjoyed it. Check out the app, and if you would leave us a 5-star review, that'd be a great help too. Yeah.